18th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus called the crowd to him and said to them, "Listen and understand. It is not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but it is what comes out of the mouth that defiles." Then the disciples approached him and said to him, "Do you know that the Pharisees took offense when they heard what you said?" He answered, "Every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be uprooted. Let them alone. They are blind guides of the blind. And if one blind person guides another, both will fall into a pit." But Peter said to him, "Explain this parable to us." And he said, "Are you also still without understanding? Do you not see that whatever goes into the mouth enters the stomach and goes out the sewer? But what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart. And this is what defiles. For out of the heart comes evil intentions, murder, adultery, fornication, theft, false witness, slander. These are what defile a person. But to eat with unwashed hands does not defile." Jesus left that place and went away to the district of Tyre and Sidon, where just then a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But he did not answer her at all. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Help me, Lord." He answered, "It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed instantly. Oh my. The gospel of the Lord. Okay. Sorry with people at home, technical difficulties. The gospel of the Lord, it's over. Praise you in Christ. Okay. I'm sure I can edit that out somehow. The story of there's a cable that runs, between here and there, and it gets caught. The story of the Canaanite woman is meant to challenge everything we know or think we know and believe about who God is and how God works. Matthew was originally writing his gospel predominantly for a Jewish audience, mostly Jewish people who are wondering, is this really truly the Messiah? So they would have understood the law and the prophets, and he references them quite a bit more than all the other gospel writers. He's writing to these people who are kind of on the fence and wondering about Jesus and who this Jesus is. Does he fulfill what the Old Testament says? And this story of this Jewish rabbi, Jesus, going to a town of mostly Canaanites, and a Canaanite woman coming up to him would have left them really second-guessing. They would wonder, can we really buy this idea of Jesus being the Messiah if this story is true? Because this is hard to believe. I imagine many of the original readers were going through and they got to this story and they just suddenly closed their Bibles and shoved it to the side and said, "No way. This is too hard to swallow." But we miss this in our reading of it. We miss this jaw-dropping, scandalous nature because the people, the places, the backgrounds, Canaanites and Jewish people in the region of Tyre, it's all foreign to us. We're out of touch with the players. And so I'd like to reread this story, retell it using today's characters. and see if you can find how hard to believe it would be. So you go home one night and you turn on Fox News. And they're reporting on a large crowd, a demonstration, a protest, a rally, whatever you want to call it, defund the police or something like that. And they're all gathered inside a downtown of a major city. Let's call it Chicago. That was in the news this week. They're there at the heart of Magnificent Mile. They got the helicopter above, they're showing the crowds down there. And they're all getting kind of out of control. There's quite a bit of chaos. The police have kind of been ordered to pull back. Eventually things get out of control. Windows are being smashed. Stores are being looted. You've seen this. Meanwhile, just by chance, just outside the city, Donald Trump is holding a political rally, okay? And so there's a whole group of other people there. They're all wearing their little mega caps and stuff. And when Donald tells them what's going on downtown, he doesn't have nice things to say about that crowd. And the crowd's cheering about the nasty things he's saying. And the feelings are mutual, by the way, because if you had asked any of the protesters about Donald, the president, or any of his followers, they wouldn't have had nice things to say either. But then the reporter shows the president getting into his car and saying, I'm going to go down there and talk to the people. And he pulls in downtown, he gets out, and he steps out in the midst of this crowd. That would be rather shocking, right? No Secret Service or anything. Expects a warm welcome. Then we see this woman. She's got her Black Lives Matters t-shirt on, and she comes running up to him, yelling, help me, help me. Won't you pardon my son? He's in jail. He's scheduled to be executed tomorrow. And Donald just walks away and ignores her. She pleads all the more. Finally, she kneels before him, referring to him as Master. Which Donald then insults her, referring to her as a dog. And she says, yes, but even a dog like me would gladly accept a crumb from your table. To which then Donald lifts her up and says, this woman is more faithful, loving, an example of what I consider an outstanding citizen than even my most loyal donors. That's how this story would sound today. Do you hear how crazy that is? Downright maddening, even for some folks. Scandalous. It'd be hard to believe it if you didn't see it. If someone just told you that happened without actually seeing any of the video footage, that would be hard to believe. The Jews and the Canaanites hate each other. They share nothing in common. And this feud goes all the way back. And this goes all the way back even before Abraham. This goes back before there were Jewish people. This goes back to Noah and the ark. Remember Noah, right? Everybody in the world's wicked, and God decides he's going to flood the whole place. Wipes out all evil and wickedness in the world. The only people left are Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives. One of his sons' name is Ham. And he does something very questionable, kind of really bad, and we don't need to talk about that here. But because of it, God curses Ham's descendants. He curses Ham's son, Canaan. Cursed be Canaan. Genesis 9. Canaan now becomes, his descendants, the Canaanites, become the source of all wickedness and evil that remains in the world after the flood. That all gets traced back to him. Later, when God shows Abraham the land that they're going to inherit, there's a bunch of Canaanites living there. No problem. They're just cursed, wicked dogs anyway. We'll just exterminate them and take the land. Wipe them out. And sure enough, when Joshua leads the armies across the Jordan, they begin to kill the Canaanites. This is not a pretty history from either side. There is a lot of bad blood between them. There is no way a Canaanite woman would kneel before the Jewish Messiah. There's no way a Canaanite woman would come and kneel before the Jewish Messiah and then beg his help as he insults her and calls her a dog. There's no way, if you're a Jewish reader and you're reading this, there's no way you can believe that a Jewish rabbi who values cleanliness, that's how this whole passage started. Jesus was walking around, they weren't washing their hands, doing the spiritual washing, the ritual washing of their hands. And the Pharisees call him out and say, look, as a rabbi, you're supposed to be keeping yourself pure for God. And that's when Jesus gets this whole idea of it's not what goes in your mouth, it's what comes out. There's no way a rabbi who values cleanliness and purity would even go to the town where unclean Canaanites live, let alone talk to one of them. He wouldn't show mercy or have compassion for her. He wouldn't lift her up as a model example of what discipleship looks like. It is very risky for Matthew to include this story. If all he wanted to do was convince people about Jesus, he should have left this one out, because I think this left people wondering. But he includes it. Includes one of the most difficult stories in the Bible for the people to believe. Because Matthew knows there's no way this could have happened unless what Jesus taught just before this story is really true. Listen and understand. It is not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person. It is not all these external things that we do, the clothes we wear, the washings we do, the songs we sing, all the places we go, how we live our life. It's not all that external stuff that defiles a person. It's what comes out of the mouth that defiles. And then she came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, help me. Lord, help me. Lord, help me is what came out of her mouth. Lord, help me is what it took to make her clean in God's eyes. You want to be right with God? It's not who you are or who you turned out to be. It's not what race you belong to, Jew or Canaanite, Jew or Greek, as Paul will say. It's not where you live or where you're from. It's not which crowd do you associate with, who do you vote for. Lord, help me. That's all it took. To make this woman, this Canaanite woman, you can't get more defiled, dirty than a Canaanite woman in Jewish eyes. It only took a recognition that she needs help. Psalm 51, starting at verse 16. For you have no delight in sacrifice. If I were to give you a burnt offering, you would not be pleased. The sacrifice acceptable to God is a broken spirit. A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise. She only needed to be in need, to acknowledge she needed help. Help from a person that her world around her told her, there's no way he's going to help you. He don't help people like you. Don't waste your time with someone like Jesus. He's one of those Jewish folks. He only helps those who love him. He only helps those who follow him. He only helps those who obey his rules. He only helps those like him. That's after the disciples believed it too. But this story shows us that God helps everyone. Earlier in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5, Jesus had tried to teach them this. He said, God makes the sun rise on the evil and the good alike. He sends the rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. He knows everybody needs the sunshine. He knows everybody needs the rain. God blesses all people. God helps all people. Matthew's gospel may be written predominantly to Jewish people initially, but his overall message is that there is no one out there beyond God's reach. It was a radical idea for the early church. It's a radical idea for even some still today. They think you got to be a good Christian boy or girl in order for God to love you. The nature of this story, the impossible nature of this story, these two clashing worlds, these two different worlds coming together. One helping the other, each helping each other. She teaching the disciples what God's love and mercy looks like, and her seeking God's love and mercy from a Jewish rabbi. Both these two worlds coming together show us that what's impossible for us is very possible for God. Because it is God who opens the eyes and overcomes our blindness. It is God who gives us the power to see in our enemies, not someone to hate and fear, but someone to love and to help. It is God who gives us the power to know the truth, not just about others, but also about ourselves. It is God who gives us the power to have mercy and loving kindness to those most different than us. It is God who humbles us before our enemies so that we may one day see them as friends. Clearly, God's hand is at work in this woman. God's Spirit already dwelling within her, guiding her, which means that God's love and care is for both Jew and Gentile. Again, a radical idea for the early church. The disciples walk away amazed, and perhaps for the first time realizing there is no one beyond God's reach, beyond God's forgiveness. It is God's intent to gather all people into one family. So I'll close by just, I'm going to sing. I almost said sing. I don't want to sing. I'm going to read just the very last line of the verse, of the song that we're going to sing now, because I think it captures this idea. Let us sing for joy and gladness, sing what our God has done. Praise the one redeeming glory. Praise the one who makes us one. Amen.